Rich Solar's Nova 12K is a pretty sick looking inverter, but looks can be deceiving and we've had hit or miss feelings about Rich Solar's products in the past. So the real question is the Nova 12K worth the money? So welcome back to the lab where our opinions cannot be bought. We are living in a time where technology in these products is increasing very, very quickly. It feels like every year, every company is releasing a couple new products that are getting better and better and better. And Rich Solar's Alpha 5 Pro batteries, which we just recently made a video on, fall into that category of being pretty damn good. But Rich's inverters have had a history of feeling like they're kind of on the tail end of that advancement. But regardless of what our testing and everything says about this product today, if you want to learn any more about it, if you want some discount codes to check out Rich's website, we will leave everything that we have to help save you guys some money in the description down below. Otherwise, before we get into the results of our testing and all of the things about this inverter, we're going to hit you with a super quick spec teardown in case you're not already familiar with the Nova 12K. First up, this thing passes the tiny baby lift test, sort of. It weighs 99 pounds. He can get it up off the ground, but unfortunately, he's just too little to get it up onto the table. But regardless, it's big, it's bulky. You're probably gonna want a friend to help lift it. It's a 48 volt split phase inverter, which means it outputs 120 and 240 volts. It's a hybrid inverter, meaning it's capable of running completely off grid with grid assist or even selling power back to the grid, depending on what you're trying to do. And it's rated for 10,000 watts of continuous output. And you can parallel up to 6 of these guys, so you can get a total of 60,000 watts of continuous output. It gets its name from its 12 kilowatt solar input, and it also has an AC input of 10 kilowatts. It's rated for 96% efficiency grid tied and 91% when it's off grid or hybrid. It has a built-in 300 amp DC breaker and a 60 amp AC breaker. It has rapid shutdown functionality and some arc protection on the solar inputs, which is actually pretty cool. And when it comes to the rest of the build, it's very simple and clean. This side has your PV isolator, your power switch, and then your door locks. The other side has absolutely nothing. You have your fans tucked underneath here on the bottom. It's got the same screen that we've seen on some of the other Rich inverters like the 6000. It's not a bad screen. It shows you everything you need to know. And then behind the door here, everything is actually very, very straightforward. You have your grid, output, and generator breakers. And then on this side, you have your battery breaker. All of your terminals are super easy to access. The door has a little weather seal around it. You also have weather sealed nuts on the bottom to make sure that everything is as weather tight as possible, which is how it gets its IP65 weather rating. But everything in here is clearly labeled, super easy to set up. No red, well, a small tiny red flag that we'll get to later. And this thing comes out to $3,898 with our coupon code on Shop Solar's website, which is not cheap. It's not cheap. Now this may be different than everyone else's opinion, but one of the things I really like about this unit is that behind the door, everything is very, very open. Other products have like little plastic panels that you need to remove to then see what's going on and access everything. Personally, I like that when you open this door, you have a clear view of what's going on. You could check your wire connections, you could check everything without having to take on or off like a little plastic shield. And then they do have like this little shield here where the breakers are. It's interesting, I guess it's just personal preference, but I actually do really enjoy the just immediate open feel of this inverter. We also really like that this thing's IP65 weather rated. So it has the weather seal on the inside of the door. It has these locks to make sure that the door gets pulled nice and tightly closed so no water gets in there. The fans are located on the underside, and it has those weather tight nuts underneath, like I was saying earlier, just to make sure that it is as sealed off as possible. So you could have this, I wouldn't say just outside, but if it's outside against the side of your house and it's still kind of shielded, you're not gonna really run any risks. We also like the screen. It wouldn't win any awards, but compared to something like the 6000 XP, that screen, I find that information is all over the place. It's really hard to find everything you're looking for at one time. This screen, it kind of cycles itself. Even if the information on the screen is not what you're looking for, if you just give it a second, it'll cycle and change and you'll see what you are looking for. And for the most part, it doesn't show you anything unnecessary. It shows you input, output, battery, and your load. Like it's all right there. There's no need to cycle different screens, which I do like. I also really like the communication with this and the Alpha 5 batteries. The batteries are really good quality batteries. I made a video on them. We really like them. It was super easy to hook them up to this inverter, get them talking, and the communication worked really well. You could see even when they were all drained to different percentages, and when I had this thing plugged into the grid and it was charging the batteries were taking different levels of power to kind of get them all to that same spot where they'd all be at 50% or 60% at the same time, instead of having them all kind of mismatched, which is just good communication skills between the unit and the batteries, making sure that they're getting evenly charged.
I should take some of those communication skills and put them into my relationship.
Yeah. And the last thing we like about Rich Solar is they have American support. When you go ahead and call them, you actually get someone on the other end of the phone that can help you with your problems. I've done it a couple times just trying to set things up, having questions, they answer them pretty quickly. Nice to have American support and not, you know, the Riexu support. First thing that we don't like about this is there is no surge functionality. We're gonna get into that in the testing, but you have to note it. That's something that I just can't get over. There's also an alarm on this unit and it is so hidden when it's running and idling. One time I had the batteries, I was set them to charge at like 200 amps or whatever. They only wanted 100. The alarm was going off. You can't even hear the alarm until you open the door. There's a code on the screen, but other products you can hear like an audible alarm. You're like, oh, something's wrong. I should go check the inverter. This one, the alarm is somewhere tucked up inside. And unless you open this door, you don't hear anything. So that's a little weird. I also don't like the wire terminals in this unit. They're pretty small. It's meant to power some pretty big loads, and my big load wires barely fit in these little tiny terminals. Some other competitive inverters have huge wire terminals, so you're able to nice, secure, hook everything up. These ones, they just scare me. Like everything is so close together and they're tiny little plastic things, and I literally had to trim a couple wires, like thin them out to get them in. It's a big load problem. Anyways, interesting that it outputs and inputs so much power, yet they give you such small terminals. Speaking of small sketchy things, the little red flag I had from earlier is this tiny little communication wire that just kind of hangs out. Why is he hanging out? He scares me. You have to wire everything around this guy, and it's the most like fragile little dinky connection up there. That's the only red flag about how open all this is. The last two things that we don't like: one, the power button, very similar to the 6000 unit. When you press it, if you just press it and let it roll, it'll turn itself back off. You have to hold the power button to actually get it to come to life, which isn't clearly written anywhere, so it can be a little bit confusing. Also, this one just doesn't seem to work sometimes. Sometimes I'll power it, I'll hold it, I'll press it real quick, it doesn't matter. It shuts off no matter what. You have to press it twice to get it to come to life. Shouldn't be a big deal, but when you're getting it set up or testing it, it kind of gets frustrating. Like, just work. When you press power on, why doesn't it just stay on? And the screen is upside down. The buttons, at least, are upside down. You go into the menu screen and you're on like 0. If you press up, you go to 99. And then you press up again, you go to 98, as if you were pressing down. They should be switched. It's just weird. It feels backwards. Now, when it comes to buying an inverter, there's a few very important things that you want to check. The first one is idle consumption. This unit advertised some pretty high idle consumption. I wasn't sure if that was going to be real or not. When this is on, nothing's happening. You have power to your outlets, but you're not using any of the power. It's just the inverter is on and running. It uses almost 150 watts just to idle, which is crazy. That's 2.6 amps on the battery. That's nuts. Like a 18K from EG4 uses like 60, 70 maybe. Like the battery screen will read 1.2 amps for that 18K. So there is no reason that this should be double that. It's not doing double the output or double the anything. That's a crazy high idle consumption. It's also rated to do 10,000 watts of continuous output. So we went ahead and gave it a load test, which was weird. The unit doesn't want to go over 9.5 kilowatts without setting off the alarm. Every time you cross 9.5 kilowatts, the alarm goes off. It says overloading. We did a 9.9 kilowatt load on this guy, just under the 10,000 continuous, and it only ran for about a minute and a half before it shut itself off. So that was strange. So I don't know that I would necessarily call that a 10 kilowatt inverter. Anything under 9,000 watts, basically you could run it all day. We literally did a test, ran it till the batteries were completely dead. That's fine. But when it says 10,000 continuous, every other inverter that we've ever had that has a continuous rating, it can run that and just even a little bit more as long as you want it to, because that's what it's rated to do. So it seems like a little bit misleading. The 10,000 watts doesn't seem to be totally accurate. And to go with that, it doesn't have a rated surge rating. So we were trying to find out what that is. And it turns out it doesn't surge at all. In some previous inverter videos, we've tested trying to turn on this big boy compressor we have here. It's a huge surge to get it going. It's over 10,000 watts. It only runs about 2,500 once it's actually going, but it's a pretty good comparison. Like if you're trying to say, hey, will this start my air conditioner? If it can run a load and start the compressor, it could probably start your air conditioner, assuming it's not like a 5-ton air conditioner. This unit started the compressor with no loads. That's where we started, nothing happening. Turn on the compressor and it worked, but the alarm screen was going nuts. It was saying it surged. It was way too much. It wasn't happy about it. As soon as you add any load to this unit, it will not start the compressor. Even 1500 watts, it won't start the compressor because it doesn't surge past that 10K. And we reached out to Rich and we're like, why does this unit not surge at all? Like even if you're just going slowly and then you're at 10,000 watts and you just plug in like 500 more, it won't even go up to the 500 for like any amount of time. It just shuts off, just says no. And Rich says it's because it's meant to be grid tied. So they're expecting that the extra amount that you're gonna pull is gonna come from the grid. So say you're running 6,000 watts on your batteries and you try to plug in another 6,000, they're gonna pull that other 6 from the grid, or at least 2 of it from the grid, so that you don't go over your 10,000. We had an interesting time trying to get that to play out logistically. I was able to pass through, without batteries connected, I was able to pass through almost 15 kilowatts through this. We still haven't heard back from Rich on what the actual amount is that you're supposed to be able to put through. I was able to pass through about 15 kilowatts straight from the grid through this unit to our massive big boy garage heater with no batteries involved. When I started to involve the batteries, it stopped working so well. And so I really don't know what the solution to that is. We reached out to them and they don't really have much of a solution to that, it doesn't seem. So just weird. Overall, this whole not surging, not running the right load thing doesn't give me the warm fuzzies, I could tell you that. Continuing with the testing, the AC input's rated for 200 amps. It goes up to there, nothing to note, it works. Solar input is good. There's actually multiple inputs per MPPT division. So if you look right here, solar input 1 actually has 2 different tabs. Solar input 2 has 2 different tabs. So you're actually able to wire this in a pretty interesting way. Like you should be able to figure out how to get your solar input into this thing, no problem. And it also has the arc detector built right in, which is just a cool safety feature. You don't always see that in big inverters. Pass through works. If you have no batteries, you're able to pass through power, as I already explained with the heater example. And the sound is medium. It sounds pretty close to like an 18K. It's just a little bit less like dementory, I would say. It's a medium volume inverter. So at the end of the day, this unit works. It feels like it's, like we said at the beginning of the video, kind of in that tail end of where all the inverters are at right now. It works. I'm sure a couple years ago, this thing was probably amazing, but compared to what's on the market right now in early 2025, I don't know that this feels like it's up there. If you love rich solar, if you find one of these on a really good deal, I wouldn't say it's the worst thing to buy. Even if you got like a sick deal on Marketplace on some of these rich solar batteries and you wanted to pair it with this inverter, something like that, like I wouldn't say it's the worst, but you have to know that you have to play within its limits. A lot of other inverters, you can buy them and you kind of push them pretty hard. This is one where you're gonna buy it, you're gonna play with it a little bit lower than you might expect to. If you know that going in, it's not bad. For the price though, I would say you probably wanna get it on sale. When it comes to the specs seem just slightly overrated. Personally, if I was gonna spend full price money, I would go for a comparable EG4 product. We've never had any weird issues with those ones. Those ones actually impress us quite a bit. They're probably currently one of our favorite brands for inverters and stuff like that. That is all we got. Let us know in the comments if you have one of these, what your experience might be with it. Otherwise, we will catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out and stay charged.